Beep, beep. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this thing that we like to call Movie Mondays with Matt Plus on the Movie Mondays with Matt Now Plus, Northern News Now Plus app. I'm your host, whether you like it or not, Matt Rasmussen, morning show director here, a.k.a. local filmmaker, a.k.a. the King of Halloween, a.k.a. Host of Movie Mondays with Matt, and I guess the name Stooper here kind of totally gave it away. The big reveal, oh boy, who's the person behind the mask? Well, here I am. This is me, Matt Rasmussen, host here today. So, I could wear this mask the entire time, but I think that'll get a little restricting, so we'll just throw this on over here. So, let's talk a little bit about Scream 7 today. That was the flick of the week. Right now, it's #1 in the box office, and it's a movie I've been looking forward to for a long time. Sorry about the preemption, by the way. Anyone who tuned in at the normal time at 10 a.m. Noticed some special report going on, so I got bumped a little bit. So, hopefully you're able to catch this on the app after the fact, if not. So, let's take a little look first and foremost at the box office numbers, and then we'll get into what our episode entails here for today. So, without further ado, let's take a quick look at our box office numbers from this weekend. Yay! Joink! Alright, first and foremost, #5, the documentary Epic. The Elvis Presley in Concert documentary brought in $3.5 million for 5th place. Then the concert film 21 Pilots, More Than We Ever Imagined, took 4th place, earning $4.3 million in fewer than 800 theaters. Then Wuthering Heights fell to 3rd place on $7 million in ticket sales. And next, GOAT lost the top spot but made $12 million for 2nd place and a domestic total of $74 million. And lastly, the one that matters the most, here it is. Scream 7 slashed its way to a $64.1 million debut, the best opening in the franchise's 30-year history. This is huge. This even outgrossed right now. It outgrossed Scream 4, its entire run in just the opening weekend of this one. So we're going to go back to Cam here. All right, so we're going to get to Scream 7 in a little bit. We're going to talk about some other stuff before we get to Scream 7. And I want to do a whole franchise recap as well, so you can take a look at those if you haven't yet seen Scream 7. If you're wondering if you should see Scream 7, I think you should. If you're a fan of the other Scream films, I think you'll appreciate this one. Here's the thing, though, with these Scream movies. If you've never seen one, you can't just jump right into 7. There's so many things. There's 30 years worth of lore like leading up to it, and every single Scream movie is built on the previous one and like references every other single installment before it. So like there's a lot of story that needs to be soaked in. So you can't just jump into #7. You need to start at #1 and go all the way through. In fact, I wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything, and before Scream 7, I rewatched 5 and 6 with my buddies in prep. And yeah, there's an awful lot that they pull out for those movies as well. So, before we get into it, let me just talk a little bit about reference the costume and the toys that we have here. This is my Ghostface costume. This is the newest one that I picked up. I've had this one not too long. This might be my 3rd or 4th Ghostface costume that I've picked up over the years here. The first one I'd like to show you a little later on in the show. It's actually kind of fun. The first Ghostface costume I ever bought was before they even had officially licensed Scream costumes on the shelves. I had to cobble something together myself. It was really cool. So that's where the costume came from. That's why I have so many different masks. There's one back here. This shiny knife, not a real knife. This came with the costume. It's like a chrome, flimsy plastic blade, and it didn't come with the gloves, but it came with a belt. So it's pretty cool, pretty cheap. You can get a Ghostface costume kind of anywhere. I got this specific mask, Spirit Halloween had this one. This is like the anniversary. It's the anniversary mask that was designed to look a little more screen accurate. And it has like the speckles on there like you see in the movie. So that was kind of cool. And that was a pretty cheap buy, so I picked that one up. And that's what I've been using lately for my Ghostface costume. Because who doesn't need 3 or 4 extra Ghostface costumes when you go out, huh? And let me talk a little bit about the toys and the props I have here. Some of this is recent stuff, but 2 things I want to point out specifically are original pieces of merchandise. We have this particular Ghostface figure. That came out with the Movie Maniacs 2 line back in the late 90s. It's one of the first pieces of like horror merch that was widely, like they had the license for the first time ever with the Movie Maniacs line, which was done through McFarlane Toys. Prior to that, you almost had no horror merch for the big slashers. You had a lot of Freddy stuff out there, but it was all just kind of from wherever. After Movie Maniacs, they got the license to Freddy, Jason, Leatherface, and the characters from Species. And those came out and were a massive hit. And then you started seeing a lot of horror merch, and that was the perfect thing for like 15-year-old Matt, like wanting horror merch, wanting horror action figures. And so Ghostface was part of the Series 2 line, along with Chucky and Norman Bates. And Pumpkinhead was in that line, and The Crow. They had some real bangers that came out at that time. And I bought Ghostface, and that's the first piece of Ghostface or Scream, any kind of merchandise I had, other than like rip-off costume pieces. And then next to this, we have a headliner, which came out around the same exact time as the Movie Maniacs line. These headliners, they're not like bobbleheads. They came out before that, and they had the license agreement with them as well, with Jason, Freddy, Leatherface, Michael Myers, and Ghostface are the ones I had up on my shelf. And so some of the most early pieces of Ghostface merch that you'll ever see right here, and they have the original accessories as well. Very proud of those. Wasn't sure if I wanted to bring them in because the accessories are small and pretty brittle, but hey, there they are. And these are from my very childhood. The other things I have here are a little more modern. You have like the Toonie Terrors figure. You can go out and get that now at like Walmart. Scream the Game, I think that's at Target or Walmart right now. And then I have the original DVD releases of Scream. Let's see, I have a few different ones here as well. Like got the Scream bonus, box set, DVD, and then Scream 4 and 5 on Blu-ray here. I haven't quite gotten around to picking up 6 yet. But yeah, so that's for the, I got to talk about this machete right at the front here, this glow-in-the-dark machete. That is one of the earliest pieces of Scream merch that came out on Halloween store shelves as well. It kind of replaced like the Jason merch. Like you always had a Jason machete. Well, then they turned it into a Scream 2 machete that glows in the dark. And it even says Scream 2 on it. It has the original labels and tags and stuff on it as well. Ghostface has never had a machete, ever. In fact, a lot of the early merch, it always had him photographed with a machete with the costume and stuff. He's never had one, never. I thought it would have been funny if by this point the movies would have referenced him having a machete. Just because he's never had one, that's a fun little wink to those of us from the 90s that were going Ghostface shopping. And I do have one of the original Fun World masks. That's not here, but I don't know if you know the story. The iconic Ghostface mask was made by Fun World, and it wasn't designed for the movie. I mean, people were brought in to like kind of figure out what the masks were going to be, but this design already existed before Scream. And so when I remember seeing TV spots for Scream, I remember seeing that mask and being like, ooh, they chose that one because there's a whole lineup of different expressions through Fun World. So that was pretty cool. I do have one of those original masks as well. And that's the history of the merch that you see in front of you here. So let's get into our history recap. And there's so much to talk about. I'm going to have to break this particular episode up into chunks, into different parts, if you will. So let's start with number 1, Scream, 1996. One of the greatest horror films of all time. One of the greatest films of all time. This movie not only reinvented the horror genre, it reinvented cinema in altogether. It reinvented cinema and changed the landscape of every movie, every poster, every way that a movie was promoted moving forward. In the 90s, all you saw were these floating heads on every poster. Scream started that little trend. Being meta, Scream started that little trend. Well, let me backpedal a little bit. Scream is known for that trend, but something came out before Scream, and I got to give a little bit of love to a couple of meta projects that came out before Scream. I don't know how many of you remember the 1994 meta slasher film, not Scream, it was Wes Craven's New Nightmare. That came out first by 2 entire years, and that was the last big thing that Wes Craven worked on before he moved on to Scream. And that was an amazing little film. That movie was so far ahead of its time that audiences were puzzled by it, and it didn't make enough money at the box office to be considered like a big success. But that had a lot of the meta things in it that you see in Scream, like characters being fully aware that they're in a horror movie and knowing what they have to do to be able to survive. And things like there's a movie script that lays out all the beats of the movie that they're particularly in. But this one involved Freddy Krueger, which was another Wes Craven project. And it's amazing. It's one of the best films in the franchise. And Robert Englund, Freddy Krueger himself, said that Wes Craven's New Nightmare is his favorite Freddy movie. So that's huge, coming from Freddy himself. The movie's great. It's, like I said, it's so far ahead of its time that people were confused by it. They didn't know what to make of it. And we can even rewind a little bit back, a year previous. We can talk about Last Action Hero, which did the same thing. Arnold Schwarzenegger is cast as an action hero who then literally jumps off of the screen and meets Arnold Schwarzenegger, who plays him. And it's a weird meta. They're sucked into a world of movies, and the kid is from the real world, and he understands that he's in a movie, and he knows the rules and how things are going to work. And he's like, I've seen this movie, I've seen these quotes, I know how things go. And you see cameos from other actors and other characters from other things. It's amazing. Last Action Hero is also way ahead of its time and was kind of lost on audiences at the time, and unfortunately it was considered a big failure, a big bomb, but I care to think otherwise. Very entertaining, amazing movie. Schwarzenegger did a great job, and he really beat himself up about it when it came out. I'm talking way too much about other stuff. Well, let's get back on track with Scream. So, those are a couple of fun precursors to Scream. So, 1996, Scream came out, and at the time there was a bit of a lull in the horror genre in general. There just wasn't anything interesting out there. The slashers had kind of run their course. Unfortunately, Chucky had kind of run his course. He was the last one that was still going from the 80s. Michael Myers had come out with a movie in 95, which not a lot of people liked at the time, Halloween 6. And then, of course, you had the Freddy movie before that. A few years before that, I guess you did have Jason Goes to Hell, but again, nobody liked that one. So the slashers were kind of on their last leg at this point. And the Leprechaun was going, but that wasn't a franchise to be taken seriously with big box office numbers. Those were direct-to-video horror comedies, really. I love Leprechaun to death, by the way, but this was a whole different playing field altogether, the video market. So when Scream came out, it put a bunch of new eyes on the horror genre, and it gave horror movies an awful lot more respect than they had been getting for years. And so this is how it all happens, is that the movie is so cleverly written by Kevin Williamson. It's a movie that looks at other horror movies and breaks down the formula and presents the formula. And you have characters that are very smart, and they're well aware that they're in this horror movie, and they're able to avoid dangers, and they befall certain dangers as well because of the exact same rules. So clever, so different. It references Freddy. It talks about Jason and Michael Myers. It's great. Let's talk about the story a little bit so you know more how it goes. So Ghostface is just a man in a costume, and the whole movie is a whodunit kind of affair. That was another thing that really became a huge trend in the 90s after Scream did it first. And Ghostface is just a man in a costume who talks on a cellular telephone and talks about horror movies and how much he loves horror movies, and he talks about the rules and trivia. And if you're targeted by Ghostface, he'll give you a call. He'll ask you some horror-related questions, and he's just messing with you. He's most likely going to get you no matter what. He's just toying with you, and it's always part of a big, grandiose plan. And the big twist at the end of every one of these Scream movies, there's usually 2 or more killers. And you never know who's wearing the costume at any particular moment. Big whodunit affair. That's the thing that really keeps people going, is trying to guess who the killer's going to be when it's all revealed at the end. It's amazing. It's just one of the greatest films. I can't keep singing the praises of how amazing Scream is. So let's talk about the characters a little bit. You have, of course, Ghostface. Big spoilers here. I'm going to get into the spoilers so we can recap all the movies. The Ghostfaces revealed at the end are Billy Loomis and Stu Macher, who are the 2 most well-known Ghostface killers. And you know them very well as characters in the movie before they're introduced as the killers. Billy Loomis is Sidney Prescott's boyfriend, and Sidney Prescott is the final girl of these movies. You always have a final girl. You always have like a jock. You always have, like, you know, there's the certain categories of people that get killed off. And Sidney was specifically fit into this idea of being the final girl. And so these movies basically all star Sidney as, or Neve Campbell as Sidney Prescott. And usually the movie is tied around her past or something related to her or relatives or something related to Sidney. So Neve Campbell is the face of the franchise next to Ghostface. And that's kind of the long and the short of Scream 1. The big plan is revealed. Well, let me tell you, the whole plan at the end that is revealed is that the killers were targeting Sidney because Sidney's mother tore their families apart, and so they were getting revenge on her. And it's like the sins of the father and that whole thing. And they thought they'd actually get away with it because they know all the rules and they're clever. But Sidney outsmarted them and took out the bad guys. And that's the end of Scream 1. We also have Gale Weathers and Dewey, who are in Scream 1. So, let's move on to the next Scream movie. Scream 2 came out in 1997, only a year later, and this is one of the best sequels of all time. This has one of the highest Rotten Tomatoes ratings of the entire franchise, and I love this one to death. This is where Ghostface really arrived on the scene as far as marketing goes. That's where merch finally started to come out, like this weird glow-in-the-dark Scream 2 machete started to become a thing. You know, Scream 2 is amazing. It picks up a short time later when Sidney has moved away to college. And the murders begin again. And some of the survivors of the original are involved, Gail and Dewey, and I forgot to mention Jamie Kennedy, who he's the character that knows all the rules and knows what to do in order to keep from getting killed, although he gets killed because he doesn't follow his own rules. So let's just get to the big reveal at the end. So throughout all the, you know, all the whodunits and all the new people that are introduced, it turns out the killers at the end are Sidney's boyfriend's mom. She's revealed she's like a reporter prior to this, and you see her, you know, as a different character for a little bit, Debbie Salt. And she's like, I'm getting revenge on you, Sidney, because you killed my boy. You killed my boy. You killed my boy, Billy. And then she was able to convince Mickey, the freaky Tarantino film student, into helping her as well. So those are the two killers in Part 2. Part 2 is amazing. Part 2 begins a huge bit of world building where they've made, in that world, they've made a movie out of the events of the first Scream movie, and it's called Stab. And they even reference like Tori Spelling from the original, which is really fun. And they've got all these different actors playing the characters that we know and love from the first one. And the opening scene is them going to a preview screening of this Stab movie, and that's where Ghostface strikes for the first time in the movie. It's a big, awesome opening. So, anyway, that's Scream 2. Let's move along to Scream 3. Came out in the year 2000, and this was supposed to be the final installment of the trilogy. And honestly, it's my least favorite of the trilogy. It's pretty much everyone's least favorite of the trilogy. A lot of people rank this one dead last in the franchise. It had some good stuff in it. Before we get into that, part of the reason that Part 3 didn't hold as much water as the rest is because Kevin Williamson wrote Parts 1 and 2. And he had plans for Part 3. But those plans over the years changed a lot. And then they went in a different direction entirely. His original story note sounded pretty interesting. He was going to bring back Stu in a way, and he was going to get into some more lore, and it just sounded like a fun take on it. Instead, what they did is they had to change a lot of the story because Columbine had just happened, and they wanted to move in a different direction to make it more safe and a little more schlocky and a little more humorous, and that you get like weird elements in there. There's like a shot where like the chrome knife is flying down the hallway at somebody, something you probably would never see in Part 1 because that one was very serious. Took the material quite seriously, where Part 3 got so humorous that it started to turn into almost a parody of itself. So anyway, story-wise, here's what happens in Part 3. It picks up with a Hollywood set, and they're making a new Stab movie based on the events of, well, they'd already made a Stab 2 based on Part 2, and this is like a new take on what their Stab 3 would be. And it's all about this Hollywood production. And the actors who are cast to play the characters that we know, and they all have the script. Spoiler alert, what winds up happening is the director of this Stab 3 movie, he winds up being the killer, and he wants to make a stab movie for real. And turns out he's like the long-lost sibling of Sidney Prescott, and he set all of the events in motion from part 1 up until now. He was the one behind the scenes that did it all. So he's the ultimate Ghostface killer. And the marketing went heavy on like, oh, the trilogy, like part 3 is the craziest one, and anything can happen. Even the final girl can die, and they're like superhuman now. And there are parts where they're shooting at Ghostface and it's not doing anything because, spoiler alert, underneath he's got a flak jacket on, or a bulletproof vest, and they're like, oh, he's so superhuman now. Well, just shoot him in the head, and that's a rule that they start to pick up on moving forward in these movies. So that's the big twist reveal at the end. Ha-ha, I'm your long-lost brother, Roman, Sidney, and I want to get revenge on you because no one ever knew I existed, and I'm tearing your family apart, kind of like, the original intent in part 1 was, and then people will finally know who I am, kind of a thing. So then there's a little scuffle. Sidney takes him out, and she's able to move on with her life. And that's the end of Scream 3. So what we're going to do here now, we're going to keep recapping the next few Scream movies. I'm going to break this up in chunks here, so we're going to go to break for just a little bit. And when we come back, I'm going to talk about Scream 4, 5, and 6, and show you a fun little slideshow as well. So stick around, my friends, and I'll see you back here in just a minute. Shoop.